This is the Stages of the Soul podcast, a production of the Caritas Center. I'm Brian Dolan, and with me, the lovely Nancy Kane.
Thank you kindly, Brian. Always good to be with you.
Now,
Always fun to do this.
so much fun. And someone is thinking probably, we thought you guys quit. No, we didn't quit. Surprise, here we are. We're back. There's lots of reasons why we've had an extended break here. One of them is I had a significant shift in my employment. I used to host a radio show and I'm not doing that anymore. So my schedule's been erratic a bit. You've been dealing with some health concerns.
Right. You're right. Some health challenges that have completely thrown my schedule upside down. And then we have life just happening in addition to that, like the daily hassles of life and the daily joys of life and all that. So in terms of scheduling, I think we tried to schedule this twice or three times.
Something like that.
Yeah. So the listeners know we've been earnest. We have not ignored our responsibilities here, but life has been throwing us a pretty tall order of stuff.
Yes,
Something
it sure
else.
has. And this is the parts we don't record are, the Lord has gifted us with not just mentor-mentee relationship, but a dear friendship. And
Yeah.
so we've had to travel through some tough things together here in the last few months, which has been a joy.
Yeah.
And for those listening, it's none your business. So, right? I mean, can't let you into everything. But we're certainly not quitting this. We're going to do it as often as the Lord allows us to do it. And I promised you, I do have a dad joke to get us started. So it's not all talking about us being delayed in recording.
I think we could have stopped at what did you call it? The Nunyas?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
This is none your business. Yeah. You can borrow that at the Caritas Center if you want.
I will have to borrow that. That is just great. Where did you get that? Did you make it up?
No, I learned it from somebody else. I don't know what the origin is. Someone listening will know when they're yelling at their radio or whatever. Radio.
It sounds Yiddish.
It does a little bit.
Yeah.
I am a bit verklempt, right? That's Yiddish.
Right.
I used to think it's verklempt, but I think it's actually verklempt. Who knows? I don't know for certain.
Yeah.
But I do have a dad joke I want to tell you, and then we're going to talk about pain. So we got to laugh a little bit before we talk about pain and the problem of pain.
Numbing our pain with laughter, and then we'll get into the pain. So kind of like with being a dentist, they got to numb it first before they do the drilling. We're going to numb it.
And I actually dislike the numbing, like the needle, more than I dislike the drilling.
Oh, really?
I have to close my eyes because for those watching this, it's like they have to reach down in this giant case and they're like, all right, open up. We got a big needle here. And it's like a 2-foot long needle that goes into your face. It's so long, Nancy. And it's like a pipe.
About that. It was like, if you want to provoke trauma, bring it on. Bring in a foot long syringe that you're going to stick in my mouth and tell me this.
Little pinch. No, it's not a pinch. It actually hurts a lot.
And also then it's like, we're still inserting. It's going to take a minute. Like, what?
Just breathe. Have you reached the back of my neck yet? Is that where we are? Or are we just in my jaw? I don't know where we are with this shot yet. I have dentist issues. I like dentists as people and hygienists, but I do not like that experience. There's nothing about it I like.
I had cracked a tooth years ago that it cracked in the center.
Mm-hmm.
So it cracked above the gum. So when I went to see the dentist, he's like, we don't really want to take out the full tooth because it's only half of the tooth. So he had to do a bridge between he had to take out what was remnant of half the tooth and then do a bridge from one tooth to the other. I was in the chair for 7 hours. My mouth, I felt like my face was distorted after I got out of the chair.
Nancy, that's like unconstitutional. That's cruel and unusual punishment. 7 hours in a dental chair? No.
Oh, yeah. I guess he was wrestling because it was bone. He was trying to get out the remnant of the bone, but he didn't want to get the rest of the tooth out. And, and then you have these things in your mouth to stretch out your cheeks so that it doesn't get away. Literally, I felt like when I got out of the chair, it was like, I probably look like the Joker.
Your face is going to stay like that? You were concerned?
Yeah, my face is going to stay like in this.
Your mother warned you all these years, and here a dentist forced your face into a contorted. Goodness sakes, that's horrible.
And he
Ugh.
keeps, "Oh, you have such an ability to endure pain." I'm like, "It wasn't a choice, buddy. It
Yeah, you
was."
didn't give me an option here. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ah,
But
gosh.
anyways, what's your dad's joke? Or do we wanna just move
No,
forward?
no, no. I can't tease and then not share it. So I one of the new things in my life is I have a 2-hour morning show, just me, on the Uplifted stream as part of KHCB. Shameless plug. And since it's just me, I get to do whatever I want. And one of the things I've decided I'm doing is once a week I'm sharing a dad joke.
And how long is this? The Just You program?
It's a 2-hour show, and I'm sprinkled in and out about 8 times in those 2 hours, sharing thoughts and
Oh,
that
isn't
sort of
that
thing.
so fun?
Yeah, it's really
Like,
and it's actually a new experience for me because I've only ever done the live thing before, like you and I are doing, with
right,
someone else. Trying to
right.
be like yourself alone, I mean, might sound easy, but it's actually, what are you doing to say something funny? I mean, is it funny if you don't say anything? And I have a tendency to be I had a friend call me the Fozzie Bear of Christian radio because I'm always like, after I say something, waka waka, So I tend to try to find a way to like entertain myself a little bit. But one of them is I love dad jokes. I think they're very funny, puns and silly things
Yeah,
like that. So one of the favorite
grown
one, what?
they're groaners.
Yeah, but that's why people love them.
Yeah, yeah, I
I mean,
guess.
a
Yeah,
bad joke, you won't respond to it. You just be like, that's dumb. A dad
right.
joke is so bad. This is my joke theory, okay? The scale of jokes is circular, not linear.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
at the top is the really funny joke, okay? Move along to the bottom of the circle, so dumb, not funny at all, no one's laughing. But the dumber it gets, pretty soon you're almost back up to the top again, where it's just as funny as a really great joke.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And that's where dad jokes sit, is just at the very end of the scale.
Love it,
Okay,
love it.
so here's the joke. So if you're ever feeling cold, Nancy, you should just go stand in the corner because it's 90 degrees there. See, look at you rolled your eyes and laughed.
Yeah, yeah.
It's true.
Well,
It's
act
90
well,
degrees there.
actually, I think the reason it was funny was because the way you said it.
Oh, you think so? No,
Yeah.
don't ruin my theory.
No, it's like, at the very end, you kinda paused just for a second to wait for the reaction, and then you said it. And
Yeah.
so watching your face, that's what was funny.
So people listening are not entertained.
No, no, but just for those that are listening, there was a very clear expression pose that you did right before you did the 'cause, like, you're almost enjoying it more than I would enjoy it
Yeah.
when you do the, punchline.
But that's also part of the dad joke.
So is this 2-hour thing I thought you're plugging into other people's content though, right?
No, no, it's music sprinkled. So it's
Oh,
a music program, and then one will finish up, and I'm like, "Hey, that was Jeremy Camp," and I don't sound like that. That was my radio voice impression, but it's like, "It's me, it's Brian. Hey, everybody, and here's the dad joke," or "Let me tell you about this article," or "Here's a cool scripture." I'm actually doing a little bit more in-depth Bible discussion than I did before, which is really fun.
oh, that is fun.
Yeah. So I didn't mean for that to be such a plug. It was just the setup to my dad joke, but thanks for that.
So, like, the, listener, audience will go up, through the roof.
See? Yeah. Yeah.
The dad
If you want to check it out, you can download the KHCB stream or go to upliftedstream.org.
and they're out of the South, you said, right?
Yeah, it's a radio group. KHCB is based out of Houston, Texas.
Mm.
Yeehaw.
And they didn't require you to have a draw as part of the,
No,
hosting.
I was hoping they'd require I never know if it's a 10 or 12 gallon hat. I forget how many gallons the hat is, but I was hoping to have that required. No, it's not.
Oh, that is too bad.
Yeah.
I think to get into the nuance of it, like the cultural aspect of, it coming out of Texas, I think it'd be important for your own sake to wear a 10-gallon hat.
I thought about it. Actually, when I went to Dallas for the very first time just a couple of years ago, I was sorely disappointed. Now, I know Dallas and Houston are different places, but I got to Dallas. I thought, here we go. We're going to have people with holsters on their belts, spurs and big hats.
And horses. Horses
Yeah,
ran through the malls.
yeah. No, and I thought maybe not all that, but at least a bunch of cowboy hats. And absolutely not. It's such a cosmopolitan city that like no one's wearing a cowboy hat. What a disappointment.
Although there are still some things I think that hang on. Like Ray had years ago had he was in retirement housing and had a retirement housing project in Austin that we would go down there pretty frequently. And one of the things that stuck with me is people would often comment how we do things big in Texas. Everything's big.
It's
It's
true.
like order some food and it'd be like, you're not just ordering a rib or 2 ribs. You're going to get a half a cow because we do things big in Texas. And I hope we're not offending people here, but
No, it's true though.
yeah.
I mean, when I was there, we went to a barbecue, Texas barbecue place, and I'd never thought through what type of ribs I'm getting before.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I wasn't concerned about. I mean, I should, in a sense, be concerned about the animal, but I just didn't think about it. Like ribs, thanks. I got ribs. Here they are, ribs.
Yeah.
But not realizing that they're going to offer you pork ribs or beef ribs. Beef
Yeah.
ribs, it's like you're on the Flintstones. It's like a. You remember when they had those big, like, giant things? Like, really, someone's going to eat that? I
Yes.
don't want that.
And then tie it up on your kid's top as Bam Bam. Because didn't she have a big bone?
Yeah. Yeah. And it would like make the car tilt, right? That's how big they are, though, really. I didn't realize it was a Texas based program.
Same thing when we were down there for the first time. I was like, I never thought, is there another option besides what we order in Chicago?
Yeah.
And sure enough, there is. And kind of disappointed. Still like the pig pork
Yeah.
ribs.
I do not want beef ribs. I don't want those. Don't offer them to me. It's just, it's too big to even think about eating it. It's offensive.
Yeah.
I'd rather have some cute pork ribs.
Well, then you got the dilemma of the barbecue sauce. Like it's not just one barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
There's sometimes 3 options. And they're like, I don't really know.
Yeah. Just pick for me. Put it on
Yeah.
there, cook it, and hand it to me.
What was popular? And they're like, well, I mean, if you like spicy or if you like sweet or if you like I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
I think we actually do have a couple listeners in Dallas. Fun city, but you guys got some work to do. You know,
Well,
wear
and
hats and calm down on the beef ribs. Right?
right. And be more sensitive to us Northerners. Okay.
You know, I had another Southern food experience in a different state. So my daughter, Grace, was in her U.S. Army training at Fort Benning in Georgia. And I hadn't spent a lot of time in Georgia. So we went, it's just outside of Columbus, Georgia. So we went there and we were at the National Infantry Museum, which actually sounds like, oh, wow, that sounds dumb. It was awesome. It was really cool, right? So we were chit-chatting in a part of the museum, and one of the staff overheard us talking about lunch. And I went over, I was like, oh, yeah, actually, we'd love to find a great place for lunch. Oh, we got lots of places down here to eat. You want, I don't do the Georgia one accent great, but I'm going to try. She's like, I was like, oh, yeah, I would love a local, like, I'd love to go someplace, Georgia.
Local
Oh, we
thing.
got lots of options if you like it. You like Waffle House? We got a Waffle House down there. And I wanted to go, Waffle House? That's where you go when you want to get sick. And we have those in Ohio, and they're not nice. And I started to like zone out when she was like, oh, we got the Waffle House, we got McDonald's over there. And it's like, excuse me, what? You're going to recommend I go to Waffle House for local cuisine in Georgia? And I just listened and said, oh, thank you very much. And then I walked away going, this goes to Waffle House. I'm not going there. Isn't that the weirdest recommendation from a local?
Yeah. Yeah. Although that feels very Southern. When we were in Tennessee, down there for a few days, I noticed Waffle houses. I'm like, is there that much of a demand for a waffle that there's lots of them around? And what's the menu? Just like,
have you been in one?
No.
It's like a breakfast place, but they do some lunch stuff too. But their thing is like, you see the kitchen. It's just like, there's a guy standing there with a skillet. And he's just, the one we went to on a family trip once, Sarah will refuse to go to one again. Like she just thought it was so gross in there and like not clean. Maybe it was that Waffle House. If we have the CEO of Waffle House listening, just take notes, but maybe it was that one. But I just, can you tell me about it's Atlanta, Georgia, or Columbus, Georgia? You got Georgia stuff. It's like
Got
go,
peach.
yeah. Where am I going to get peach cobbler or something? It's like if
Right.
somebody visits you in Chicago, they're like, "Oh, where should we eat? You have any recommendations?" Oh yeah, you ever heard of Burger King? Yeah, it's right over there. It's great. We love that here. What? Domino's Pizza. You like Domino's Pizza? It's great in Chicago. So I don't know what we're going to do with that.
We had some people, maybe I've told you this. We had a cohort where there was a time period in the cohorts where we were having some of the meals catered in.
Oh,
And so we thought, you know what, this would be really fun because we had people from all over the country. I thought, especially for these California people, just do a whole spread of Chicago foods.
yeah, I'm in.
So we Chicago hot dogs, Italian beef, deep dish pizza. I don't know if there's anything else besides that, but so we were super excited of like people going through the line being like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I've never had anything like this."
Yeah.
It was the absolute reverse. People sat down and started eating, and they're like, "What?" Like with one guy was like with the Italian beef, What is this? Like exactly what am I eating?" And she
The
almost
best type of sandwich.
I know. Same thing with the pizza. It was like, and like, why is this? What is this? Like, this isn't. And the whole thing was a complete flop because they just weren't familiar with the food. And I was like, how can you not like Chicago food?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, I would begin to question their discernment, as in maybe they need to be removed from the Caritas Center program, spiritual formation program.
if they cannot discern good food, come on.
Yeah, Italian beef, it doesn't get much better than that. I will actually intentionally, if I'm in Chicago for just a short time, that's what I'm going to go get. I'm going to go
Oh, yeah.
get an Italian beef and I'm going to get it dipped. And if you don't know what that means, ask somebody.
Yeah, dipped. And then a deep dish pizza,
Yes.
Gino's, Lou Malnati's,
Yeah.
probably the best.
Yep.
But I think, and conversely, we had to do a cohort in New York, and people kept saying, "Oh, try the pizza. Oh,
Yeah.
you've got to have pizza before you go." And so Ray and I went to this place in downtown, I think it was Manhattan, and thinking people keep saying, "Have a pizza." It was like, what?
It's a
Like
mess.
this? It's like eating a paper plate, and they threw a few
Thank you.
sausages in it.
No, I totally agree. Sarah and I did a New York trip, and everyone, oh, I have to have a New York pizza, and then they fold their pizza like it's paper. Maybe that was the first problem we thought of. Paper is folded, not pizza. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, I eat it. I go, what is happening here? There's nothing happening. You're right. It's like a paper plate.
Oh my gosh,
It's
you're
gross. It's
right.
not even good.
Yeah, I had the same experience. And after so many people from New York saying, "You've got to have the pizza," and then having this thing in front of me that was so thin, I did feel like I was eating the paper plate with a little bit of sauce and just a little bit of cheese on it and a little bit like maybe sausage or whatever the toppings were. So I thought, well, maybe I'm not eating it right. So I'd fold it up, thinking that folding up was going to change it. No, it wasn't like, it was like folding up a paper plate
Yeah.
with a little sauce in between. So I compare that to the people coming to the Chicago cohort and being like, what? So it's got to be something cultural, that you grow up with it. You're like, associate memories with it and all that.
I mean, there are objective foods that are good and there are objective things that are bad. Like I have to acknowledge that, I grew up in Minnesota and we have something called a hot dish where people are like, what, is it usually cold or why do you have a hot dish? It's casserole. Okay. It's what we call it in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge that outside of the upper Midwest, people don't really like casseroles all that much. They're not that flavorful. They're not known for being like vibrant flavors. It's kind of, it's like cream of something soup, some veggies, some meat, some potato or something. And there you go. You're done. But
It's
it has its nostalgic value for me. Like I like a good hot dish now and again because it just reminds me of my childhood. It's yummy. But I'm not going to walk around telling everybody you haven't lived until you've had hot dish.
Yeah, I'm with you. I being from Midwest, my mother would make casseroles or at church,
Oh yeah.
a potluck was a big deal. Like there would be like 5 or 6 different hot dishes and all of them had a similar um substance about it in terms of creamy.
Yeah. Cream soup.
lots of starch,
Yep.
a little bit of protein,
Mhm.
and cheese.
Yeah.
So, like, tuna fish casserole would be potato chips, tuna, cream of mushroom soup, and some milk to make it not too dry.
With some noodles, probably.
With some noodles,
Yeah.
yeah. If you really want
Tuna noodle casserole, tuna hot dish. Yeah,
right. Eat
absolutely.
about cups of that and you fall asleep.
My, my mom had a family recipe passed down that people would just laugh at. I think it's delicious. It was called Nettie's hot dish. Okay. And it's because her great aunt Nettie developed this cutting edge recipe. Get ready.
There we go.
Rice, cream of
Right?
celery soup.
Oh,
Whoa.
yeah, that's that's stretching it.
Ground beef. That's it. I mean, a little bit of salt, and then you bake it. And then in my family, you put ketchup on it.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't, but my parents did that. Yeah,
do you put
it's not great.
eggs?
No eggs. No. Why would you do that?
No, but when you have eggs, do you put ketchup on?
When I have no, my dad does the salsa bit, but I don't. Eggs are
Yeah.
meant to be eggy in my
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, I remember my mom in that era, really kind of pushing forward with, cooking of developing a hamburger noodle casserole that had,
Developed it.
yeah, well, it was, crushed tomatoes,
Oh,
broth, noodles, hamburger, and cheese. So, like, it was, like, a little bit more sophisticated,
yeah.
and we just thought, "Oh my gosh,
She's a chef.
this is to die for," you know? And I'd be like, "Can you make the hamburger noodle casserole again?" "Okay."
If you insist.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna keep you on down this road because it's so fun. My mother-in-law. So Sarah and I first meet, and she's like, "You got to have my mom's turkey meatballs. This is Brian. This is food." So they have me over for turkey meatballs, and she would take ground turkey, which, by the way, as we all know, has less flavor than ground beef because it's so much
Right.
leaner. Okay, ground turkey. Take the ground turkey, form it into a ball shape. Notice I haven't put anything in it. Cook the rounded ground turkey.
In oil, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah. You had to have something there.
And then you take jarred gravy and and noodles.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, it makes me feel like I wanna gag a little bit just
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And then here's another one for you. When my parents were first married, both from Minnesota. Yeah. They
Yeah. Sure.
my mom made a hot dish, one of their first meals together.
Oh,
And so they ate it, and she's like, "Bill, do you like it then? Is it good? You like it?" And he was like, "It was good. A little spicy. It's good." The spice that she put into this casserole was salt.
oh my
Not not black pepper. Like, it was a little spicy because it had salt in it.
oh my gosh. Yeah, that's very Scandinavian.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, you go to IKEA, first time I went to IKEA and their menu, it's like, "Oh my gosh, this is like true Swedish food. Can't wait." It's like, "Yeah, we won't be back here for a while." It was just gravy and land, and I was like, "How do people get excited about this?"
Someday we'll have to have our Swedish friend, Ingmarie on the show, and we can quiz her
Yes.
about this.
Yeah, she's been in Sweden for 3 weeks now, so I'm sure she could really, educate us as to the way she's very Swedish pride. Like, Swedes are I don't think she'd say the superior race because 'cause she's got good theology, but she comes pretty close to how wonderful Swedes are.
It was fun to talk to her after I made my podcast series, The Grandfather Effect, because she, being Swedish, and my family lineage is Swedish, and part of the
Yeah,
story was wondering if that's a contributor to my family's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but their unwillingness to discuss deeper issues. And
yeah.
it actually rang very much true. She said to her cultural experience was the
Oh,
Swedish
yeah.
people are very, very, they like bland food, and they're very private.
Yeah, and they're high judging, but they never say it.
Yeah.
I think that's true for Norwegians too. High judging, they're always evaluating, but they might squeak it out on the side, but you never know face to face if they've got an opinion.
But
So
besides
you're
that, they're great.
yeah. So you're always left guessing. A gal I told my sister when she lived in New York, she said Norwegian guilt is worse than Jewish guilt because it's
Really?
Jewish guilt. The mother's going, "Oh, you never call home. You never call your mother." Whereas with Norwegian, nope, silence. So you don't know if they're happy.
Oh, wow.
You suspect that they're probably unhappy because they haven't said certain things. So yeah, I think she's probably right.
Wow. Look at us. See, this is a catch up podcast in many ways, not just in like putting it on your hot dish, but catching up on life. I didn't even mean to do that.
Well, and you've been on a real roll today, so I'm glad to go with you on this one.
But I don't want to avoid our more serious topic.
I think we're both avoiding it, don't you think? I mean, a little bit. I
Well,
mean,
who likes to talk about pain?
I know.
We've both been experiencing it, so maybe this is our way of avoiding pain.
I think so. I think it's our way of coming up for air for a little bit
Yeah.
before we dive down again. So perhaps there are people out there listening. They're going, "Whew! I'm so glad you started with this raucous beginning because I just wasn't up for diving right into it right away."
Yeah, I would guess you're right. I mean, because we have the advantage as, Americans in 2025 to really avoid a lot of pain if we want to. In fact, I was just watching, this is how nerdy I am. When I have a free minute and want to throw something on the TV, we have
Mhm.
Roku TV and they have a whole channel of modern marvels from the History Channel. You ever see that
Oh
show?
no.
It's like, and now the next hour, steel, like how it's made, or, like whiskey this hour, or airplanes. And so,
Wow.
and in this case, it was talking about the advent of vaccines.
Huh.
And so they had historians and some photographs, old photographs of like hospital wards, and they were describing family life in America pre-vaccine. And there was this powerful description where a historian was trying to say, listen, it's not that families then didn't love their kids as much as we do. They did love their kids, but they had to prepare themselves that they were going to lose one or two to a disease. Like
Wow.
every family was going to lose at least a child. I think the death rate for children was like 25% or something prior to vaccines. You'd have kids, you could have whole families wiped out by cholera. I went to a local historic cemetery here in my town in Ohio, and there's a couple of old gravestones of all children in the same family, like maybe 4 or 5 from the same family. And when you look it up, they all died in a cholera outbreak
Oh my
in our
word.
town. And so you had scarlet fever, pneumonia would kill people. What was the other one? Tuberculosis was killing people. And so what their point was that you don't understand. Pain was such a normal part of life, and death was such a normal part of life that you had to have a level of acceptance of it. And now we can actually trick ourselves into thinking that we're not actually going to experience pain and can avoid it, and maybe even somehow not even believe death is coming.
Yeah, and I think exactly. And I think it goes to certain things like are markers of that. How many people in the second half of life have facelifts? Why would they want to do that? Because they don't want to pretend that they're actually getting older.
Yeah.
They actually have wrinkles. Or just even the whole health movement that, if you, the notion, whether it's, eating the right foods or not avoiding the wrong foods, that we can really beat death. And that we highlight these people that I think they're called the super agers or super seniors or something like that. People that have lived fairly unhealthy lives, but lived to like 102. But we're celebrating that like as if that's the goal. But I think that um, and the development we live in, there's more young families coming in, but there's quite a bit of people that are probably 80 plus. And watching them in their aging, it's not pretty. I'm like, where do we get this idea that living into 85, 90 is the goal? Like, you know, not being able to hear, not being able to see well, like, how is that how is that something that is something to look forward to?
Yeah. Gosh, it reminds me of my wonderful grandmother. The last year or two of her life, I could hardly go visit her because she was such a shell of herself.
Does she have dementia?
No, she didn't. She started to, I mean, not any sort of clinical Alzheimer's or clinical dementia, but she had reached almost 100 years old. And so she was just not her physiologically, she couldn't do what she wanted to do. And she was slowing down mentally. And
Mm,
so, she always had herself all put together. And you go visit somebody who's a little disheveled and maybe drooling a little bit. And it's painful. It's
mhm.
not who I remember her to be. Um, and so, but you're saying we think we can avoid that somehow.
I think that that's the message in the culture. Why else would there be such a big push towards right foods, right energy bars, exercise this amount of, I keep seeing stuff like on Instagram. Here's the kind of like the magic exercise formula. You know, forget the hard workouts. Just do this 20 minutes a day. Well, what are they promoting? I can somehow have this healthy life that I can live for as long as I want without a whole lot of problem. Um, we're not, and also I think you and I have talked about this. I think that death is not too close to us now. So when someone dies, we send the body to a funeral home. There might be an open casket, but even that, it's temporary.
Mhm.
And then we go back to our homes without that person there, and um, we'll grieve, but we're not faced with the physicality of the mortality of death. Whereas in other eras of history, or in even traditions like the Jewish tradition, you were sitting in front of the casket, open casket, for 7 days.
Hmm.
So you were and in the context of community. So people were coming through, they were sitting with you as you sat in front of the body. And I really think that it's a beautiful tradition to say we are facing death together.
Yeah, but now we avoid it, right? And we don't have, as I mentioned before, that familiarity with it in our own families. You can go 20, 30, 40 years without experiencing death of someone close to you.
Mhm.
And so I think that compounds the trauma of experiencing it. But yeah, we've fooled ourselves into thinking we can avoid it. And like you're saying as well, we hide from it.
Mhm. Mhm. We hide from it, and we don't wanna hear about other people's, pain, because that just reminds us that we might be mortal. There might be something that happens to one of us, and so I have a friend that I've known for quite a few years, and she's just a precious person, but she has so much anxiety that her head is always buzzing with the what ifs.
Hmm.
Like, what if I eat too much eggs? And what if I don't work out today? And am I going to be okay? And I think in a lot of ways, she's like a lot of us. Um, we've so lost sense of the eternal moment, and that really that we're aliens here, waiting to go home. We're not home, waiting for an upgrade.
I like how you put that. It's true though. Uh,
Yeah.
and we actually you found this beautiful piece from the late great Tim Keller.
Hmm.
I'd imagine everyone knows who he is, but for those who don't, he was a writer, theologian, pastor, started a church in Manhattan that ultimately spurned a revival, I think, in New York City.
Hmm.
Would you put it as a revival?
I wouldn't know the statistics. I know they started a lot of satellite churches, but I wouldn't know the numbers.
And I went to New York City once when he was still living years ago, and I went to his church, and my friend and I were hoping we'd catch him preach. But that
Mm,
church intentionally, it was a beautiful idea. They had multiple campuses, and they would not publish where Tim was preaching because they didn't want people to go to church just to hear him. And so you never knew if you're at the right campus. And we went to the campus, and it wasn't him. And
mhm,
so
mm.
honestly, I was kind of like, "Oh, great. Should we
Let's go
stay?"
get a pizza.
Yeah. So he died of pancreatic cancer at in our day and age, a relatively young age. He was right around 70. I think
Mhm,
72, maybe. I forget the exact age, but he wrote an article in March of 2021 in The Atlantic. And The Atlantic is the perfect place for him to write this because The Atlantic, as I've found, doesn't care at all about word count. I mean, if someone says, I'd like to write a 5,000 page essay. They'd be like, sure, we'll publish that. So I don't think anyone went in there and made him cut words and such, but he's such a wordsmith. It's just
Yeah.
beautiful. And what he talks about is it's called growing my faith in the face of death. When he got his diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, it came as a complete shock. He had already written a book about death, and it was called On Death, pretty on the nose for him. And when he got this diagnosis, he couldn't even read his own book on death because he was so
Right.
thrown off. And I'm going to jump to my favorite paragraph in here to read to you, Nancy, and then we can go from there. So he goes through and he's like, oh no, I've encountered people who have a crisis of faith when they encounter death. Here I am, Tim Keller. I'm unexpectedly facing death at a time I didn't choose. What's going to happen here? And he said, one of the first things I learned was that religious faith does not automatically provide solace in times of crisis. A belief in God and the afterlife does not become spontaneously comforting and existentially strengthening. Despite my rational, conscious acknowledgement that I would die someday, the shattering reality of a fatal diagnosis provoked a remarkable and remarkably strong psychological denial of mortality. Instead of acting like Dylan Thomas's advice to rage against the dying of the light, I found myself thinking, wait, no, I can't die. That happens to others, but not to me. And then he says this, when I said these outrageous words out loud, I realized that this delusion had been the actual operating principle of my heart. Whoa. For Tim Keller, celebrated pastor, intellectual, giant of the Christian faith, to say he realized at age 70 with a terminal diagnosis that the actual operating principle of his heart was to deny his own mortality for all of his life. That's startling to me. How do you react to that?
I found it incredibly refreshing.
Did you?
Yeah, because he was willing to be honest about what most of us aren't willing to be honest about. And I think that said so much to me about what I already suspected after listening to him for so many years, um, of his integrity of soul, that he was willing to face the mirror of the hard truth that he'd been running from death like everybody else. And what's more added to that is here's a man who knew the scriptures inside and out, could speak from the depth of theology about who God is. And now, when he's faced with his own finiteness, he says, I came up lacking. I came up short.
Wow.
That's stunning to me. And it's no criticism whatsoever of Tim Keller, nor does it diminish uh, the impact that God had through him for so many people. It says it's what's true for all of us.
Yeah.
We're all running from death. And he goes on with that next paragraph of the cultural anthropologist Ernest Becker argued that the denial of death dominates our culture. But even if he was right that modern life has heightened that denial, has always been true with us. Then he quotes John Calvin, we undertake all things as if we're establishing an immortality for ourselves on earth. Is that not so profound? If we see a dead body, we may philosophize briefly about the fleeting nature of life. But the moment we turn away from the sight that the thought of our own perpetuity remains fixed in our minds. Death is an abstraction to us, something technically true, but unimaginable as a personal reality. And it's like, amen and amen.
That's what we
He's
were
like,
talking about before.
yes, exactly. And I think we can believe one thing and not have it be a reality. So, like he's saying, I believed in life after death. I believed in seeing Christ. He's not saying this specifically, but seeing Christ face to face. But the notion of his actual mortality had not settled down into his heart. And he is like all of us, I believe.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I think if you listen to his preaching and see some of his writing before his diagnosis, I could see, at least in my far distant observation, that there was a softening of his heart.
Mhm.
He he would be placed up next to many great Bible teachers of today. Now,
Mhm.
it's not any personal commentary, but you'd think about all the people that had radio shows like he did. You'd think of your Chuck Swindoll, John MacArthur, and David Jeremiah, and all these guys. You're like, yeah, and Tim Keller's up there. But there was a difference to Tim Keller. And I think that it reveals itself in this piece as he's confronting his own mortality. Because he goes on to say, I realized that my beliefs would have to become just as real to my heart, or I wouldn't be able to get through the day. And I think a lot of American evangelicals today, a lot of American Christians
Mhm.
approach uh, faith intellectually.
Mhm.
And that's the beginning and the end of it. And they don't allow, and this is what your spiritual formation course does, is it dares you to allow the Lord to permeate not just your mind, but all the way into your heart and make your faith really become a reality.
I saw a quote by, I think it's Pascal the other day, and I couldn't believe it when I stumbled on it. And he said, "The knowledge of God does not lead us to the love of God."
Hmm.
And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
I can know a lot. Profound preacher, in-depth knowledge of the scriptures, in-depth knowledge of God, but he admits right here his beliefs was not going to get him to face death. And I think that this is what a testimony for all of us that, um, what does Christ say? Come follow me. He doesn't say, come know about me, come study me, come read another book about me. He wants us to fall in love with him.
Yeah.
That it's a love relationship. It's not an academic exercise, and we'd like it to be an academic exercise because that's easy. I can pick up a book as I did most of my life
Me
and
too.
say, like, there was a book years ago, now Knowing God by A.W. Packer, and I remember reading it and thinking, "Oh, this is it. Like, this is it. I am reading all the core qualities of God. I've got it. Like, I can speak to this. I can tell people about it. They want to know about God. I'm going to say, well, here he is." But I clearly had no conception of falling in love with God.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? You're
Yeah.
kind of positive.
No, no, no. I'm letting it soak in. Because I had a conversation recently with a pastor in the Cleveland area who said something somewhat provocative, but in the same vein, where a lot of people are scratching their heads wondering what's wrong with Christians in America today, right? And a lot of people point to biblical illiteracy. And he said in his observation, and he working on his PhD, he went around and he actually realized, no, a lot of people are actually going to really good Bible teaching churches. And so I don't think that lack of knowing is the problem. And what ultimately he said is that he's realized that people are actually not being challenged to live out what they say they believe. And that's where we have the problem is people have done it. And I was like, yes, exactly. It's the intellectual pursuit. It's church as a college class where you
Mhm,
go and you learn something really interesting. And you go, huh, I knew that. Isn't that great? As
mhm,
opposed to, as Tim Keller is talking about, he realized in a moment of pain and crisis that unless he allowed his faith to move into his heart and truly transform his inner being, and therefore his actions towards others and his relationship
mhm.
with his wife and such, um, it's not a real faith at all. It's not helpful.
Well, and it's not, and it gets to the point, it's not honest in that if okay, I'll go back to knowing God. I can read the book on knowing God. I can know all these things. And then I pray and I say, thank you, God, for being just and good. Thank you, God, that your promises are fulfilled again today. And I can go through all these qualities I know about God, but I'm not interacting with the real God who looks with a fierce love into my soul and says, "You're broken, you're hurting, you're anxious, you're misdirected, and I love you."
Hmm.
And so this other way doesn't require anything from me. Um, but over here, if I am very broken and I'm at the end of myself, you see it from people that have profound conversions. They say, God, I am helpless. You're going to have to help me. And then he comes forward and says, here I am, and I love you. But then I think something happens for a lot of Christians after that point, whether it's at 10 years old or to 30 or 50 or whatever it might be, is that they get into the church, they start getting a lot of knowledge, and then they get in this kind of comfortability, like, I'm good. I, you know, I'm not where I used to be. That was pretty ugly, but I'm good now. So I just have to keep, keep up with Bible study, keep up with my praying. But the praying really isn't praying anymore. I'm praying to myself because God's not answering the prayer of me reminding him that I think that he's good and just and powerful and almighty and omniscient and, you know, all the things that I can rattle off.
Well, and this also leads to the problem of our ability to avoid pain then, because it doesn't challenge us to grow in this way. And this is where I quote you all the time. My old radio show, people would tease me, say, "Oh, here we go. It's a Nancy show again," because I'm quoting you all the time. But it's you. You and Ray would always say, "Pain is God's invitation to grow."
Hmm. Hmm.
But that requires, number one, that you allow a scenario where pain can enter your life, and then, second of all, you accept it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is that
Hmm.
a fair way to say it, or am I missing a step there?
I think you have to. And I think that, but that first step is critical. He writes in again, this article quoting Paul Brand, the orthopedic surgeon in the United States, they encounter a society that seeks to avoid pain at all costs. Patients live at a greater comfort level than any I had previously treated, but they seem far less equipped to handle suffering and far more traumatized by it.
Hmm.
So I'm thankful in my own life that God has um, created, as the years have gone on, a greater and greater capacity to hold more and more pain. But most of us, like myself, live our lives doing the reverse, numbing, avoiding. Um, and then the world says, yeah, yeah, be happy. What do you enjoy to eat? Like, go to your favorite restaurant, go for a nice walk, enjoy. So it reinforces that. So we don't really have to think about pain. And then when it comes, we don't have the capacity to know what to do with it.
Hmm.
And it was curious to me that with COVID, when we were in the middle of COVID, I remember Ray and I, when we're all quarantined for whatever that was, 3 months or so, I remember saying to Ray, this is going to be it. Like, this is the invitation for the entire world from God to finally seek him. We're seeing millions of people die. We're seeing millions of people suffering. We're seeing people starving. I mean, global crisis. And there was no change.
Yeah.
There was still the kind of, okay, well, now that we're back up and going in the church, we're going to have the programs again, and so and so's going to be teaching on Thursday night. And there was no real, honest discussion of how am I dealing with this pain? What do I do with this anxiety?
Yeah. Instead, what we did is we fought about whether or not Christians should be required to wear masks.
Right, right.
Oh, what deep
Or,
spiritual thought. Thank you for that.
or a dear friend of ours who's a pastor of a church ended up in a psych unit during COVID because his church was so cruel to him, he couldn't bear the cruelty because he was a new pastor to that church. So one, being a new pastor, but two, then COVID hits and all kinds of chaos is happening. So rather than them again dealing with their own pain and saying, I'm anxious, I'm afraid I'm going to get COVID, I'm afraid I'm going to die, they channel it towards the pastor and crucify him.
Yes.
And he can't handle it, and he checks out for 3 months. And it's like I wanna throw my head against the wall because it's like, are we that far away from truth?
We're so conditioned to it. And because another incident I think of was one where you helped me. We had a family friend whose son died by suicide, and we were to go
Mhm,
visit. And I called you like, how do I do this? And you said, well, you can't make it about you. It's not about you. It's about them.
mhm.
And then I would go through, well, what if I did this? And you'd chuckle. You go, well, that's about you though. And I go, okay, well, what about this? Well, but Brian, that's about you.
Mhm. Mhm.
And what am I supposed to do then? I think I got exasperated with you because I didn't know any way to process someone else's pain other than me either making it about myself or totally avoiding it.
Mhm.
And, had I been through your program at that point?
No. I can't remember.
I
I
hope
can't remember.
not. But if not, I grew a lot since then. But uh, I and I feel like I know what I'm supposed to do. That it's not supposed to be about me, and I still could hardly avoid it.
Yeah, and do you have a sense of what was so uncomfortable about having to encounter his pain?
Part of the uncomfortable portion for me, my wife and I felt a compelled sense that we had to go be with them.
All right.
And it was beautiful when we got there. They both collapsed in our arms, and they had a bunch of family there, and it was just it was a lot. But I had my discomfort. I didn't want it to lead to me solving for myself or me doing something to be more hurtful or unhelpful to them. When if I'm
Right.
really there for them,
Mhm.
I need to be
Mm.
available for what they need.
Mhm.
And that was really hard. It
Mhm.
took advice from you, and I took a lot of standing and watching as a bunch of family were over at the house and we get there and friends, and wild to see nobody actually everyone was avoiding. The college friends were on the deck laughing about something. Other family was telling old stories. And you've got this couple that has experienced the worst pain you can possibly imagine. Our
Mhm.
sweetest times where we were able to stay a little bit late and just sit with them and do hard things like ask them, what do you miss most about your son right now?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I remember the dad sat me down and looked at me and said, "I want to tell you what happened." Because you know how people are. They're like, what did he do? How did it happen?" And they only want to know for their own salacious knowledge.
Mhm. Right.
And
Right.
so, because of your guidance, I was able to look at him and say, "I don't need to know what happened. If you want to tell me, I'll be
Mhm.
glad to listen, but I don't
Mhm.
need to know what happened." And it was beautiful because then he said, "I want to tell you what happened. I need to tell you what happened." And then he told me
Mhm.
one of the worst things I've ever heard in my whole life.
Yes, and I think that's just redemption right there, isn't it? I mean, it is that not what God Christ who entered into the world in the flesh and entered into our pain and weakness and sin and suffering said, "I'm with you. I'm here. I'm not far away." And in that moment when you listened to him and said, "I don't need to know, but if you want to tell me," that's really Christ himself coming through you to him saying, "I'm here and I can handle this." I think that's the model for all of us. But even in your own life, that was preceded by that was you facing suffering in your own life.
Yeah.
You facing your own pain and sin head on and seeing yourself get through that, you then can in turn could be that for your friend. I think of my son worked up in Door County, Wisconsin, and it's kind of a tourist um, for people that are different about Wisconsin. It's like a tourist part of Wisconsin, and there's a local bar that everybody goes to, and it's also known for the place that the locals who live there go to. During COVID, there was a lot of suicides up there. And I asked Eric how people were handling it because at one point there was like six. I don't know the exact number, but there was quite a few within like a 2 week period. And I said, so like, how are people handling this? Because these are people they know that they were rubbing shoulders with, they were working with. And he said, they ring a bell. And I said, they do what? And he
Yeah.
said, yeah, at the bar, there's a boat bell and they ring a bell when someone has died. And I said, do they talk about it or do they say something or do they spend a moment in silence? And he said, no, they just go on talking. And I thought, oh my word, like again, like we're so afraid of entering into that pain that we can't even spend a minute in silence thinking of the memory of someone who passed and what joy that they brought or the pain that they must have experienced that would bring them to that place. And I guess that's better than nothing, but still, it's like, ring a bell and have another beer.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's like the minimum level of acknowledgement required. Like,
mhm,
we actually make a method that's so detached that you don't have to use words.
mhm, mhm.
Wow. That's wild. I mean,
Yeah.
I that makes me think of a story, I may have shared it before, but there was a, young couple in the church Sarah and I belong to in Minneapolis, and they, had twins that both were stillborn. Very
Mm,
tragic. Now they were preterm, but they had a funeral, which was a beautiful idea to help cope with this. And I remember we were standing. I can picture it. We were standing in the whatever church you call it, the narthex. There's a
right.
holding area before you go in the sanctuary.
Mhm.
And I looked, and the mom was standing next to a piano that was out there, and nobody was talking to her.
Oh, no.
Uh, and she was just standing there by herself. There was a lot of people around,
Mhm, mhm,
and I think it was a lot of things. Right? What do you say to her?
mhm,
So we don't know what to say, and we feel bad, so we say nothing, which is probably the worst thing you can possibly do for this poor woman.
mhm,
Why is it so
mhm,
hard for us to go up and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry"? Like, in
mm.
fact, you shared a story with me at one point about you had a friend who lost a loved one to a car accident suddenly, and you just sat with her.
Yeah, she was it was a couple that we had gotten very fond of, and they had 2 children, boy and a girl, and the girl was the oldest, and just, like, if you looked at an adolescent who's a senior in high school that the world is just their oyster, that was her. Beautiful, smart, godly, follower of Christ. I mean, everybody loved her, and then she was killed in a, car accident and obviously devastated the parents, just devastated, and we flew down there to be with them similar to what you went through, and, she like, people were kind of gathering different places, they would say things like, "I'm so sorry," and she'd say, "Thank you," and I felt like, the only thing that I could do and the only thing it seemed that she needed at the time was to hold her hand.
Hmm.
And so I sat with her holding her hand as people walked by or would come up and, because that's all she really wanted and needed. Because words would, at that point, feel cheap, you know? Because we were so fond of them, to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," it would be like it just wouldn't communicate the depth of the love that we had for them, and we can never presume someone else's pain, so I think that, as we're talking, one of the things I'm thinking for listeners is, um, the exhortation really to face one's pain so that when people come into our lives that are in pain, we know the process,
Hmm.
and we know what we needed when we were in pain, and we can in turn around and give that to people when they're suffering.
Yes.
And be gifts of redemption rather than, um, silence that feels more isolating.
Yeah, I think it gives you it gave you the courage to just hold her hand. Because in some sense, it takes courage to not make it about yourself or not worry about your comfort.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, and I had a friend here in Northeast Ohio that he died suddenly of a heart attack, and we go to the funeral, and they had a receiving line essentially where everybody was dismissed from the sanctuary to walk in front of the family who was sitting on the front pews, and you could just see how uncomfortable everybody was to do this. A lot of people were just like, "Yep, I'm sorry." But you've helped me walk through some very intense pain in my life. And so I was intentional. I tried to be intentional in that when it was my turn, I got down on one knee and I looked his wife right in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, your husband was such an amazing man. And what a privilege it was for me to know him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't take an exceptional courage for me necessarily when you've walked through that pain, right? Where you know what it feels like to have someone like go past you and say something because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if anything, I mean, of course, we didn't even talk about the spiritual growth that comes from going through pain.
Mm-hmm.
But if anything, going through it, you can offer that solace to somebody else. Why wouldn't that be worth it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because pain is
Right.
so lonely, Nancy.
It really is. And I think that in my own life, I've spent a lot of time off and on these last couple months, probably at least, thinking about what's the core of our gospel. Um, we tend to focus on the core of our gospel as Christ risen from the dead, overcoming sin and death once and for all. True. But preceding that is his walk to the cross and his 3 years of ministry where he had all kinds of different suffering, small and large. But the cross was really um, the model for us of what it means to face pain.
Hmm.
And even in the Gethsemane, him saying to the Lord, to Father, if it's your will, take this away from me. So he's given us a model of pain if we choose to look at it.
Yeah.
But we want the victory. We want to stay in the victory. So let's just focus on that. When in fact, in my own life, because of some pain, chronic pain that the Lord has allowed these last few months, I've had to say, what's the answer? Because I'm surely not finding it from other Christians, but I am finding it from Christ's model.
Hmm. Wow. It's one of those two where we didn't certainly solve anything here or fix anything, but uh, if just one person decided maybe I won't try to reject pain this time, that's a beautiful choice.
Hmm.
But it's such an unattractive selling point. I always chuckle when you and I have to laugh about this or have to talk about this because, uh, come and be a Christian, experience pain,
Yeah, have your life fall apart.
and you'll grow a lot from it. I swear.
Right.
It's something you can understand only on the other side of accepting pain.
It's the only thing you can understand that the longer I live, the more I realize how I've lived so much of my life in a lack of freedom, wrapped up in my own small ego. And the more God dismantles my ego and my false self, the more I realize what a small life I was living.
Hmm.
That in his economy, in his presence, identifying with him in his sufferings, there's grand freedom. And the fruits of the Spirit come forward with incredible power because I'm no longer solving for myself. And I see rightly that I am, Mother Teresa talks about being a pencil in God's hand. I'm a pencil in God's hand, and he writes everything well.
The Stages of the Soul podcast has been a production of the Caritas Center for Christian Formation in partnership with Stained Glass Media. Don't forget to subscribe to, rate, and review this podcast to help us spread the word. Nancy Kane is a licensed professional clinical counselor, retired professor, author, and speaker. Brian Dolan is a radio host, podcaster, and former public school teacher. Be sure to check out the Caritas Center's Spiritual Formation Program, as well as more information about this podcast at thecaritascenter.com. That's thecaritascenter.com. And last, but certainly not least, special thanks to the man, the myth, and the legend, Ray Kane, for his guidance, support, and expertise. Talk to you next time.
This is a Stained Glass Media production.